ॐ शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर्गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः।
The value of a value. We even try to bribe the Lord in order to get to heaven. We are always ready to compromise if we can get something that is valuable enough to us. If a man sees the difference between having $5,000 and not having it, he may even deceive a friend who has offered to give him 20% over and above the value of the house he bought and renovated. All he has to do is to jack the price up by the amount of money that is so important to him. This man knows that the money can take him to Hawaii. It will definitely give him a good vacation somewhere. Thus, to have this $5,000 will definitely make a difference in his life. Therefore, he is ready to compromise. Suppose you tell someone you should not tell a lie, and the person, being very pragmatic, questions you. What do I lose if I tell a lie? What will you say? Or if your child asks, Dad, if I can get some money so that we can have some more things, why should I not tell a lie? Generally, you will say that telling a lie is wrong, which is another way of saying don't do it. The general message the child gains is that what is wrong is what I should not do, but this does not explain anything. Therefore, the child will come back asking, why is it wrong? Well, because it is not right, you say. Why is it not right? Everybody else does it, the child argues. And those who lie get money. I don't get it because I don't tell a lie, but if I tell a lie, I will get it. Why should I not tell a lie then? A father who is a little more intelligent will say, you see my child, you will be detected. Now the whole question becomes, is it all right to tell a lie if I do not get caught? Someone might say, so what? Even if I get caught, so what? You will lose your credibility, the person is told. But if the person does not care about his or her credibility or anything else, then where is the problem? You will not be eligible for a credit card, uh, maybe your response, to which the person replies, that is why I steal them. That way I get 5 cards at the same time. This line of argument is of course foolish and should not be pursued. What one should appreciate is this: if there is a universal value and I go against that value, I must lose something. But my focus is on the gain that results from such an action. Perhaps I gain money, which makes a difference to me because I see the value of it. But what do I lose? Since I do not care for credibility, I do not see that I lose anything. Compromise and moral order. If you can see the immensity of the laws with reference to compromises made to gain such things as money, power, etc., you're mature. You will not go for the bargain because you see it as a bad bargain. You should see that what you lose is more than what you gain, which has nothing to do with the moral majority. If there is a universal structure, and there is, then what I lose must definitely be much more than what I gain. Therefore, the education needed for maturity is to know what I lose. Suppose I say you will go to hell, and you do not accept the idea of hell, then that is the end of that. You will simply say, you go to your hell if there is one. I'm not going because I do not accept a hell. How do we know there is a hell other than where we are now? Hell is simply a belief. Suppose it is wrong. The threat of hell is certainly not a very convincing argument for telling the truth. Perhaps I do not believe in hell or do not care if there is a hell. If there is a hell, I will tackle it when I get there. It's not my problem right now. All that I want to do is get out of the hot water I'm in right now. I will deal with the heat in hell later. This is a different thing. I'm in hot water right here and now, and $5,000 will make a difference. However, if the person knows that he will be the loser by gaining this $5,000, he may not compromise for the sake of that money. If I were to ask him, why do you want this $5,000? And he would say, because I can then buy certain things. Then I ask, why do you want those things? And he replies, so that I can be happier, more secure. But if I were to show him that in the process of getting this $5,000, he becomes incapable of being happy, and hence the bargain is a bad one, then he will not compromise. Now he understands the price he may have to pay for the compromise. This is how one understands the value of a value. No one wants money for money's sake. If that were the case, a cashier's job would be good enough, because by just feeling money, you would be happy. You want money for your sake so that you can be happy. Money is very interesting. Without it, certain things cannot happen, but there is a limit to what money can offer. You can buy a book, but it can never make you read unless the author offers you $1,000 to read it. Then of course you will read it overnight. But even then, the money cannot make you understand what the book says. For that, you require something else, something other than money. Money can buy music, but it can never make you understand music. You can hire the best musician to sing for you, but the money you pay to the musician cannot stop you from falling asleep during the performance, unless again you're offered money to stay awake. Thus, money can provide situations. That is all it can do. And money does do that, which nothing else can, a point to be remembered. But then the enjoyment is for the person. You are the one who is to enjoy the music. If I lose the enjoyer, then in the process of acquiring the money that will provide the opportunities for me to enjoy, then it is a bad bargain. Therefore, the whole education or inner maturity of a human being is not in knowing what is right and wrong, which we all know, but in knowing what I lose when I do the wrong thing. This I should know. What will I lose? How much will I lose? If I know this very well, it's not possible for me to go for the bargain. This is what is to be understood here. When you tell a lie, you're speaking, and therefore you are a doer, a performer, an actor. You're doing the action of speaking, and as the actor, when you tell a lie, you're saying something that is not true to what you think. Therefore, the thinker is one and the actor is quite another. You know one thing, and by the time it comes out of your mouth, it is entirely different, because what you say and what you think are not the same. This means there is already a split in you. As a speaker, a doer who's telling a lie, I behave in such a way that I create a split in myself, like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The thinker and doer split. Once I create a split in myself, then as a doer, I'm different from the one who knows, who thinks. If this split has taken place, do you think that you can succeed in life? Even with money or whatever else, you cannot, because the person you is already split. As a thinker, I'm entirely different from the performer, the one who does things, the doer. There is only one I, and when I see myself as a split person, then I cannot enjoy what money buys. I will be worried all the time. You cannot do a wrong thing without a conflict, and every conflict naturally creates a split in you. The conflict itself is a split, and the split creates conflict. The more conflict there is, the more split the person is. This is not a conflict of choice. It is a conflict between me, the knower, and me, the doer. The split is in the very personality, the very person, so that the mind is unable to enjoy the pleasures that money has bought. If a person already has a split between what he or she thinks and does, how can there be enjoyment of anything? Whether it be food or a beautiful house. Being in conflict, the person is also potentially moody. You have to determine whether or not someone is in a good mood before you can talk to the person, and good moods come only occasionally. When you say what you have to say, the person may feel so bombarded that he or she gets into yet another bad. Thus, the person is nothing but mood, potential mood, all due to split, the conflict between the thinker and the doer. By analyzing such situations, we find that this split, which is the basis of all psychological problems, has something to do with our rubbing against the law of karma. Just look at yourself. When you are in conformity with the order, there is always freedom. There is harmony, joy, and a certain composure. Whereas when you rub against the order, you get rubbed in the process. No one can rub against something without getting rubbed. If you rub against a rough bark of a tree with your bare body for 5 minutes, You will see who gets rubbed. And this knowledge will stay with you for at least 10 days. That you never rub against anything without getting rubbed in the process needs to be well understood.
We'll take a quick pause here. And I think understand the Dharma, like, it also happens with us in terms of biological processes. And so many times when we ourselves with the nature's clock, there is a lot more harmony in how we live. Sometimes if we are waking up around the sunrise and sleeping on time in the evenings, we have a much better, happier day compared to a day where we're probably sleeping in the day and not having enough time in the day. So those actually feel longer. So I'm trying to tell us that living in harmony with dharma is very important. So that's why our elders have put dharma, artha, kama, moksha, not artha, kama, dharma, and moksha. People feel like, first I have to earn, and then I have to fulfill my own wishes, and that's when I can start doing the philanthropic work. But we have been raised to say, even if you had only a small square meal, share it with anybody who comes as guests. So we have seen, heard so many of Puranic stories in our studies, that sharing, caring, and all of that was just part of our culture. So Swamiji is just trying to emphasize that put dharma first, and then come the artha and kama.
For every gain, we need to know the loss. Having understood that we rub against the moral order without being rubbed in the process, it takes even more understanding to know exactly how much we lose by performing certain actions. It becomes a matter of self-esteem. What kind of self-esteem can there be when a division has been created between the thinker and the doer? Sooner than later, you will conclude that you are worthless. This process can be seen when you make a very simple resolution that tomorrow I'm going to get up early in the morning at 6 o'clock and I'm going to meditate for half an hour. You have decided that to begin the day with meditation is good, and this is what you want to do. Therefore, you are going to get up half an hour earlier than usual and meditate. Whose decision is this? It is not someone else's. It is yours. You even set your alarm clock to ring at 6 o'clock, and it does. In fact, it never stops. It goes on beeping, beeping, beeping. Then what do? Annoyed, you turn the alarm off and go back to sleep. Do you know why? Because the one who made the decision last night to get up half an hour earlier did not consult the one who had to wake up the next morning. This is like a husband making a decision to go on a weekend family trip without informing or consulting his wife. The decision to wake up earlier was made by someone who thinks and figures things, whereas I'm the one who has to get up. Therefore, you had better consult me before you decide anything. Between husband and wife, there can be some consultation. But when I'm thinking that I'll get up a half an hour earlier, the waker is not there to be consulted. Here is a real problem, because the waker is also me. While this plight looks very simple, it is actually a very complex issue. The split between the one who thinks and knows and the one who does is a very self-detrimental split, one that eventually will naturally lead to self-condemnation. If you tell me to do something and I decide not to do it, it is quite different from when I tell myself to do something and I cannot do it. Once, twice, or thrice is not a problem. But when I cannot conform to my own decisions more times than not, what self-esteem will I have? If it happens only once, I can always justify not having done something. But if I do it consistently, then I cannot have any self-esteem. And without self-esteem, no one can really help me. Even the Lord cannot boost me up because intrinsically I have a problem. Therefore, I am the loser. If I am together as a person, I can enjoy sports and a variety of other situations that do not cost money. I can even enjoy myself, which also does not cost money. Whereas if in the process of gaining money, I lose myself, the transaction is definitely a bad bargain. To know this about myself is education. It is growing up. Who then can afford not to have such knowledge? Because I have a faculty of choice, I must necessarily exercise that choice. I must know the norms, which are the basis upon which I choose. These norms are known to us by our own common sense. The only education needed with regard to them is an understanding of what I lose when I gain something. In a so-called gain, I should be able to see how much I lose. If I do not lose, then the gain is truly a gain and is worthwhile. Whereas if I lose, the gain is not worthwhile. Therefore, the means that one follows in gaining one's ends are very important.
I wanted to share something that occurs to me. So here, Swamiji is talking about a conflict that we have within our own selves, right? So when so many times we think, oh, that particular person is a problem in my life, or not having a fancy car is a problem in my life, or something else. We attribute our problems, our state of mind, or our frustrations to external stimuli, where Swamiji is saying, look internally, and we have conflicts within our own selves. And here he also says, like, if somebody just had to sit with them, like, let alone if two people sit and for 10 minutes later they will get into a fight, is a funny joke. But if somebody wanted to just sit with themselves on their own with no gadgets and stuff like that, Swamiji asked the question, like, how long can you sit with yourself? Within like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you get bored and you want to just take a walk, you want to take a book, because there is that disparity between the person who we really are, the conscientious being that we are, to the one that is performing the activities, that is fallen into the so-called grihastha dharmas of the capitalist countries, like what we live in, of earning money, like paying our mortgages, paying our bills, and like going for fancy things, all well and good. But as long as we don't lose the disparity, there is no split within ourselves. I think that's the point he's trying to drive. Any thoughts on that before we move into the next topic?
He talks about the self-respect, You can get self-respect only if you respect yourself. And that means you shouldn't have too much of personality splits.
Exactly.
The significance of battle in the Gita. In the Gita, we have a conflict between two groups of people based on a historical event. One group was all ready to compromise the means and go against the dharma, even though the dharma is so very important. The other group was committed to maintaining the moral order, the dharma. Conflict can also be looked upon as one between a person's common sense knowledge and what he or she wants to accomplish, an inner war, an inner Mahabharata, so to speak. After all, every war takes place first in one's mind and only later outside. The moral order is considered to be so important that a person will sacrifice everything for its sake. In the Mahabharata, there are many stories of such sacrifice. One story is about a man who gave up his kingdom and everything else he had in order to uphold the universal value of speaking truth. Because India is a place where dharma is important, it was referred to in the Gita as Dharma Kshatriya. The Veda rules the thoughts of the people and everything subserves the order of dharma. In the country of Bharata, which is India, in a place called Kurukshetra, these two groups of people have assembled, prepared to fight. One group does not understand the value of values, and the other group does. All eyes were on Arjuna. considered to be the greatest archer. Arjuna's driver was none other than Lord Krishna. The illustration of Arjuna seated in his magnificent chariot, drawn by white horses and driven by Lord Krishna, is very beautiful that it relates to one's own life. This illustration also appears elsewhere in the Veda, in the Kathopanishad.
The body chariot analogy. In this illustration, your body is likened to a chariot. Your senses are the horses, the mind is the reins, and your intellect, buddhi, is the driver. You are the one who is seated in the chariot. In other words, you're the Swami, the master. If your buddhi is loose, if your understanding is not very clear, you can end up anywhere because your chariot, your physical body, will not take you to the destination. You can take the chariot to Artha, Kama, Dharma, or Moksha. It all depends on the driver and you, the Swami. The driver, the buddhi, educates the Swami, really speaking. You're as good as your driver. If the driver is uneducated and drunk also, you've had it. If, however, your driver is informed, educated, then he or she can take you anywhere you want to go. In the Gita, Krishna, the driver, became the one who educated Arjuna. He was the guru to Arjuna, and Arjuna was the Swami, the one seated in the chariot. Arjuna ordered Krishna to station his chariot between the two forces so he could see those in the enemy ranks with whom he would fight. Krishna moved the chariot as directed. From the vantage point selected by Krishna, Arjuna saw his own people in both camps and decided that nothing would be gained by fighting this battle. Arjuna found himself facing Bhishma, who was his grandfather, and Drona, who was his teacher in archery. He saw uncles and cousins, friends and acquaintances, and other relatives. These were the people Arjuna would be destroying, the very people he needed with him in order to be happy about winning the war. Arjuna found himself facing Bhishma, his grandfather, and Drona, who was his teacher. He saw uncles and cousins, friends and acquaintances and relatives. These were the people Arjuna would be destroying, the very people he needed with him in order to be happy about winning the war. Therefore, he said, I would rather not fight. We will see his arguments for his thinking later. The whole problem for Arjuna was one of, these are my own people. We have this problem even today. For example, when we say my people, we mean that our people can get away with doing anything and other people, unknown people, cannot. But in Arjuna's case, the people were not unknown. If the opposing army had been made up of men who were unknown to Arjuna, there would be no Gita at all. Krishna would only have had to drive the chariot, nothing else, and Arjuna would have fought. But Arjuna happened to see people he knew, people with whom he was connected, with whom he had to settle accounts, and people who in the process might die. This is what bothered him, as it should have. It would bother any cultured person, any mature person. These were the people who really counted in Arjuna's life. Duryodhana also saw the same people, but it did not bother him as it did Arjuna because his value structure was different. There are a few select people in everyone's life whose opinions count. You may not want to be seen by them on New York City's 42nd Street, for instance. This may not be because you do not want to be there, but rather because you're afraid of what people will think of you. You do not want to fall short of the good opinion they have of you. These were the people who were standing in front of Arjuna against whom he was supposed to fight.
This analogy, as Swamiji was mentioning, is from Kathopanishad that has been taken into by Vyasa into Bhagavad Gita, where we are comparing to the body, the passenger to the soul. Reins are the mind, charioteer is the intellect, and Krishna is this Paramatma, and the horses are all the senses. So imagine if the charioteer was not intellectual, and knows where we are going and lots of information, so he can hold the reins properly and all of that. The sense organs are controlling the intellect, or controlling the whole chariot. So I'll explain this a little bit more in a write-up in the forum, but it's a very important analogy before we actually step into Gita. Understanding this is critical. And also important to understand why Arjuna was having the problem. And there is one Upanyasakata in Telugu. He specifically mentioned something that stuck to me for years. He says, in these days, we could also say, if Arjuna said, "Oh, I don't want to fight this fight," and ran away from the battlefield, we could also think, "Oh, he is a peace lover," and therefore we could make him a god as well. And we have had some of our kings in the past, in not ancient India, but just past, when Mughals were attacking, or we were getting attacked these many years, they fell for peace and non-violence in the wrong times, and therefore left the country for invasions for many, many centuries. So it's about when it is considered peace and non-violence versus when it is considered a biased opinion. If Krishna, and was very, very obviously, is a super smart Paramatma. So when Arjuna asked Krishna to go drag the chariot and place it somewhere in between the two armies, there will be a sloka that will come in chapter 1 when he instructs Krishna to do so. If Krishna went and put the chariot in front of where Duryodhana and Dushasana were standing, in front of their chariots, the whole Bhagavad Gita wouldn't have happened. Because I'm pretty sure Arjuna would have gone berserk with rage and would have fought with ferociously. But Krishna is smart to actually take that chariot and put it in front of Bhishma and Drona, who are very dear to Arjuna, and only then Arjuna felt like, "Oh, I don't want this fight. I want to go take Nyasa at this point." That's when Krishna had an opportunity to teach us Gita through the medium called Arjuna. So Arjuna's claims on why he wants to leave the battlefield make a lot of logical sense. But why is that Bhagavan wanted him to fight? And taking that in the right context is very important. As I mentioned in one of the previous classes here, even Oppenheimer had Bhagavad Gita book. He was the person who created the atom bomb that was getting dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And even while dropping it, he had Bhagavad Gita book, "It is my dharma to fight," but just taken in the wrong context. So this context really helps us to understand why it's for fighting for dharma's sake, and not for taking revenge on somebody.
Arjuna's dilemma. Because Arjuna no longer wanted to fight, he had a problem. According to the code governing the war in those days, there was no such thing as a successful retreat. Either you won or you lost, the loss amounting to death, since the fight was always to the end. Thus Arjuna knew that in order to hoist the flag of victory, he had to destroy all the people in whose company he would be happy and in whose absence he would be unhappy. Arjuna wept, not out of fear, but out of compassion, out of sympathy, out of care. His response was that of a mature person. He began to think that war was not the answer to the problem, which of course was true, given that the loser always prepares for a comeback. The First and the Second World Wars are recent examples. No one wants to accept the fact that he or she has lost. Not only did Arjuna think war would not solve the problem, he also felt that its aftermath would create great confusion in the society. Since all the able-bodied people would be destroyed, the society would have no leadership, and the very structure of the society would disappear because people would be confused as to their duties. Even Dharma, for the sake of which Arjuna was supposed to win the war, would be in trouble, for there would be no one to carry it forward to the next generation. Dharma is both a discipline and a life of discipline. The values that govern that discipline are also Dharma. Like the lifestyle that is Dharma has to be handed over to the next generation by the present one, and is not something that can simply be bottled and buried for the future. Dharma is something that has to be lived. Thus, When you protect a person who lives a life of Dharma, you are protecting Dharma. You can protect libraries, but you can never protect scholarship unless you protect the scholars. Protection of the scholar is the respect you have if you value scholarship. When a society values scholarship, the people will sell their shirts to gain that scholarship because it commands their respect. This is a situation in India. A king would come to his knees when a scholar entered his court. When scholarship is valued, respected, in this way, the scholar will be protected and valued. Only then will scholarship continue. Similarly, to protect Dharma, you have to protect the one who lives the life of Dharma, the Dharmi. If the Dharmi is protected, meaning that he or she is respected and valued, then everyone will want to be a Dharmi. Arjuna naturally thought that by destroying these people, there would be no one left to live a life of Dharma, and that the Dharma itself would thereby be destroyed, the very Dharma he wanted to protect by waging the war. The battle was supposed to be one of Dharma, but the very fighting of it, he thought, would endanger Dharma. Arjuna therefore felt that he would be incurring a great sin by causing confusion into the society. Naturally, he wanted to avoid this problem. At the same time, he did not run away from the battlefield. He did not jump out of the chariot and run towards Rishikesh, which was only a short distance away. Instead, he dropped his bow and arrows and sat back in the chariot, as we will see at the end of the first chapter of Gita. Krishna's rallying cry. Arjuna was so completely overwhelmed by compassion, sympathy, and consideration that he could not fight. Addressing the sad Arjuna, Krishna expressed his sense of surprise. To extend his actual words, he may have said, Arjuna, where did you get such a disposition? I never expected you to behave like this. This is not a time for talk. It's a time to act. To talk in the battlefield is not befitting your temperament at all. You are supposed to act. You are a prince, and the most respected prince at that. You are the greatest archer, and you are someone who is supposed to protect Dharma. If you, of all people, do not want to do this, what will happen? It is definitely the wrong time for you to be talking like this. Had you told me a few years ago, while you were in the forest, that you did not want to return to the kingdom, that you wanted to study and contemplate, I could have appreciated it, and we could have discussed it at length. But not here. You came to the battlefield. You even brought me along with you. Now you are making a right about turn. It is making you look silly, and you are making me look silly too. When I stake on a horse, I am ready to lose my bet, but I do expect the horse to run. That much satisfaction I should have. And now you're telling me that you will not even start. Krishna then asked Arjuna to stand up and fight. It should be understood that not all of Krishna's words are scriptural. Here, they were purely words of advice and not meant as an order. Only when he taught and dealt with the ultimate concerns in life, the universal problems that belong to me, to you, and to all, and sundry, at any time and place, do his words assume the status of a scripture. Krishna was just giving Arjuna a pep talk. Recognizing that Krishna was talking to him as though he was afraid to fight, Arjuna exclaimed, How can I fight against Bhishma and Drona in this battle? They are men worthy of my respect. I would rather live the life of a mendicant and live on alms than destroy these people. This was Arjuna's thinking.
Arjuna as a student. Arjuna also said, in so many words, I do not think this sorrow will go away just by gaining a kingdom, whether the kingdom be here or in the hereafter. Even if I go to heaven and become the ruler there, I would be the same wanting person. I would have the same problems. Arjuna knew that to be the ruler of a kingdom brought only royal problems, that enemies abound, especially if the kingdom is prosperous or unrevolved. He therefore did not see himself as one who would be free from the problem of sorrow by gaining any kingdom. The problem of sorrow, as Arjuna pointed out, is self-non-acceptance. In fact, self-non-acceptance is the original problem. If I do not see myself as an acceptable person, that self non-acceptance will always be there, with or without a kingdom. Therefore, Arjuna saw no solution to the problem. He recognized that he had spent his time on empirical concerns and had never dealt with the ultimate concerns of life. Because of his desire to solve the original problem, Arjuna offered himself as a student to Lord Krishna and asked him to teach him what he needed to know. He considered himself to be qualified for this knowledge because he had enough experiences in life and had discovered the problem. All that now remained was for Krishna to decide whether he would accept him as a student, a Shishya. In other words, the ball was in Krishna's court. Arjuna, having done his part by saying, "I am your Shishya, please teach me." All of this we will see in detail later. There are three very significant words that mean the student in Sanskrit: Vidyarthi, Antivasi, and Shishya. Vidyarthi means the one who wants to know and can refer to the type of student who enrolls in a college to get a degree but spends very little time in the classroom. And an Antivasi is a student who lives with the teacher. This type of student also wants to know but may not be able to grasp what is being taught. A Shishya is the one who is truly qualified to study and therefore deserves to be taught. He or she may also gain other experiences while studying. But these are byproducts only. The Shishya, there is a certain directions and commitment that is necessary for him or her to really accomplish anything in life. If I'm happy that you are in my class, then you are a Shishya. And if I miss you when you're not there, you are a Shishya. If I wait for you, if you're delayed by a few minutes, you are a Shishya. To be a Shishya means you're qualified to be a student. The teacher looks for your presence and does not want you to be absent. When this is so, you're definitely a Shishya. When Arjuna told Krishna, "I'm your Shishya, please teach me," he was also saying that he had a commitment to this knowledge, that he saw the value of it, and also that he looked upon Krishna as a qualified teacher. He did not say he was a student, but he said, "I'm your student, aham ta Shishya," meaning that he had chosen Krishna as his teacher. The Gita began only because Krishna took Arjuna seriously and chose to teach him. Therefore, we have 17 chapters of dialogue between the teacher and the student. Krishna-Arjuna Samvada. Krishna may have taught in prose, but Vyasa chose to put it in the form of verses. Each chapter is a dialogue with a predominant subject matter, which is revealed by the title of the chapter. So the first chapter is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga, meaning that the topic discussed is Arjuna's sorrow. A fundamental problem requires a fundamental solution. A problem can be solved topically or fundamentally, and Arjuna decided to solve it fundamentally. Because of the clarity it produces in one's thinking, a fundamental solution resolves the problem so completely that topical issues of right and wrong no longer arise. In fact, in the second chapter of Gita, Krishna told Arjuna that his sorrow was not legitimate, that no sorrow is legitimate, even though legitimate sorrow is commonly accepted. In other words, we acknowledge that it is legitimate to be sad in certain situations. When you have lost a loved one, for instance, it is wrong to tell yourself that you do not want to be sad or that it is not legitimate to be sad. If you're sad, you're sad. Therefore, it is best to acknowledge the sadness and that there is a reason to be sad. Remember, however, that you become sad because you're already subject to sadness. In fact, only the sad become sad, just as the mad become mad, and the mad become bad, and the bad become bad. All that is required is a particular situation. The sad person is already there, and it may take no more than a change of weather for him or her to become sad. Certain plans may have been made based on a weather forecast of a good weekend. A rainy weekend then becomes a bad weekend. There are vulnerable spots in everyone, and when these are touched, the person is touched to the quick meaning that he or she suddenly becomes angry, frustrated, sad, hateful, or desperate. A person who does not suddenly become a desperate person, he or she is already desperate. The person is the despair. Psychologically speaking, there is sadness and there is some legitimacy to it, for it. But if you look into the matter dispassionately and realistically, you'll find that there is no real reason to be sad. When you go to a therapist, you're a seeker. The therapist analyzes your past and analyzes your past and arrives at a solution to your problem, saying, for example, it is all due to your mother. Yes, that is true, you say. In this way, the therapist validates your feeling. Knowing there is a reason for your sadness, you have a sense of freedom. You had certain opinions about yourself that made you sad, and now your reactions and responses have been validated properly. Your conclusion based upon wrong notions about yourself can now be looked at differently. By changing these options, you gain a freedom as though you have thrown light upon yourself.
Accepting situation as they are. You begin then by acknowledging the situation and validating your responses. Later, you find there is no reason for sorrow. It does not mean you are suppressing the sorrow, only that you see the situation as it is. What we are doing is taking the sorrow further and asking, is there a real reason for sorrow? Lord Krishna told Arjuna, there was not. How could he say this? Was it merely because he had never experienced sorrow? After all, Krishna was looked up to. Everyone prostrated to him, and all the gopis were after him. Did he not recognize Arjuna's limitations? Lord Krishna understood Arjuna's limitation very well. Everyone has limitation: physical, perceptual, intellectual, and others that are picked up while living one's life due to the natural aging process. Originally, you may have had a 20/20 vision, and now perhaps the vision is 20/60. Thereafter, you require glasses, a hearing aid, and perhaps a cane also. In spite of all these limitations, Lord Krishna said, there is no room for sorrow. It is something to know, and is what the teaching is about. Arjuna asked for knowledge, and the Lord Krishna taught him in the second chapter. He did not just make the statement and ask Arjuna to work on it. He made it very clear. Once Arjuna received the teaching, it became a matter of questioning and assimilating the knowledge given to him. Thus, the second chapter ends with Arjuna's question, how do you describe a wise man? Krishna had told him that the person who is wise is different. He or she is one in whom, due to wisdom, there is no room for sorrow. Since the problem is to be solved by knowledge, Arjuna wanted to know how a wise man behaves while conducting the affairs of his life. He wanted to know how he walked, how he talked, whether he talked, and so on. Krishna did not answer the question literally, but instead responded to the spirit of the question. Had he not done so, Arjuna may have thought that all he had to do to be wise was to walk, talk, and sit in a certain way. A wise person is one who is happy and secure with himself or herself, one who requires nothing else to become secure. It refers to one who looks at oneself as totally acceptable to a acceptable person, the one who can say, I cannot do better than myself, because the acceptance is total. There is no area for non-acceptance. The self is essentially free from any sense of want or limitation. It is the whole, in spite of the limitation of the body, mind, sense complex. You are the whole. I am the whole. If you understand this, then you do not need to prove yourself to anyone. To do so is no longer his necessity. Such a person may do a lot of things, but not to prove himself or herself. This is how Krishna defined a wise man to Arjuna, and he gave a few examples as we will see later.
So the most important one I think we will be learning through this is a wise person is one who is happy and secure with himself or herself, but nothing else to become secure. So that's the, I think, key message for quite a few verses. We will be seeing the first few chapters, and we'll go into more detail when we get there.
2 life says for gaining self-knowledge. Krishna also talked about Karma Yoga, a life of activity, and about sannyasa, a life of renunciation. Then he said that all you need in order to be free is to know yourself. Why then Arjuna asked, do you ask me to engage myself in this war, which will result only in destruction? It was a very relevant question. Arjuna thought that Krishna was giving him 2 conflicting pieces of advice. Krishna had said that knowledge liberates, and therefore Arjuna felt that he was telling him to pursue knowledge, which was what he wanted to do. Not only had Krishna said that knowledge liberates, he had also said that karma binds. Then he had told Arjuna to do karma. What did this mean? Thus Arjuna begged Krishna, please do not say sannyasa is good and karma yoga is also good. I cannot accept this. Tell me one or the other. Knowing the difference between karma yoga and sannyasa is a matter of understanding, and Arjuna was confused. Therefore, he asked Krishna to tell him which one was right for him to follow. But Krishna did not want to play the role of a consultant. He only wanted to teach Arjuna. To teach is to make the other person see as clearly as you see that he or she does not need to come to you again. The person who is able to do this is a teacher. Krishna, being a teacher, did not give Arjuna advice. Instead, he taught him the remaining chapters of the Gita. At the beginning of the 5th chapter, Arjuna had the same doubt and rephrased his question. Again, Krishna told him that sannyasa was good and karma yoga was.
Cherry, jelly.
Here, Arjuna,
Which one is your favorite?
it was not matter for choice. This was a matter for understanding.
Just to know 2 modes of lifestyles that are available for us to attain knowledge, and Adi Shankaracharya starts the Bhagavad Gita Bhashya explaining these lifestyles. So we'll be talking about this topic as well a little bit. And as Swamiji was saying here, Arjuna continues to ask this question. Even in the 18th chapter, a question arises from Arjuna. Are you sure it's the karma yoga that also gets me knowledge? And you're saying that taking sannyasa and just pursuing knowledge alone is also really good. So tell me, which one should I pursue? So it's quite an interesting talk between the Paramatma and Arjuna. So we'll get into that. But for now, we'll conclude with a short prayer. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Stu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Sarvam Srimannarayan Charanarvindarpanastu.